This is a demonstration that will show you how to construct and apply a flat collar. The shape that we're actually going to be doing today is referred to as the Peter Pan collar because of the shape that it takes, and it got its name from the Peter Pan musical and program. So that's what we're going to be applying to today. It's a flat collar because once it's attached around the neckline, it lays flat against the bodice. There's different types of collars. There's actually a lot of different types of collars, but there's different categories. So it's either flat and it lays flat against the bodice, or it has a stand, so a rise and then a fall, which is the type of collar that we see like on dress shirts, because it's rolled over. It stands up and then it rolls over. But this one, it just connects into the seam and it lays flat against the bodice. So that's what we're going to start off with first. So it's always a good idea to, kind of review your patterns to make sure that you have everything that you need. This is our bodice front, and just like our previous sample, we're only doing a half of a sample, so a half of a complete bodice. We're going to be doing the right front and the right back. So if we were going to put this on a dress form, we would be split right down the middle, and we would have a bodice that covers the right half of our body. So we have our front bodice here, and we can see that we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance along our neckline, 5/8 inch on our shoulder seam, some stay stitching again around our armhole, and then 5/8 inch seam allowance along our side seam here. If we look at our back piece, our center back line is 5/8 of an inch away, so that means that we're going to fold that back to have a flush edge with our center back piece. And we have this extension so that we can practice how we would insert a collar into a garment opening, because we always have to know, we have to ask ourselves when we are constructing something, how is a body going to get into this garment? And that's through an opening, and we have to make sure that all of our raw edges are enclosed into some sort of seam, or has some sort of edge finish, a nice finished edge to it, and a hem. So these are the things that we have to think about while we are constructing, is will everything be enclosed when I'm done? So this is our back piece, and again we have 5/8 inch seam allowance along the top to match our other shoulder seam. And then we have our collar, and we have two of these. We have an upper collar and an under collar. And then we have our front facing and our back facing. And again, hopefully when you cut this out, you paid attention to the little note that was on your pattern instructions. It said when you cut your facing pieces, you want to make sure that you cut them with the wrong side of the fabric facing up, so that once it's attached, we will only be seeing the right sides of the fabric. So it's always a good idea to keep your pattern pieces close, to keep yourself familiarized with the seam allowances that are being used, any notches that you might have forgotten, and just it's always a good reference to keep everything kind of pinned together until you have to take it apart. So well, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to assemble our facing pieces. And so according to what the pattern says, that we needed to cut one of fabric and then one of interfacing. And so I have my fabric piece cut here, as well as my interfacing, and for both my front and my back facing pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and I'm going to go ahead and fuse my interfacing pieces to the wrong side of my fabric. So you guys can see that here, with that fusible side is that bumpy side that has those adhesive dots, so when they're heated up, it will stick to the wrong side of the fabric. And again, what I always do is I always keep those pattern pieces right on top so I don't get anything kind of mixed up. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video, and then I'm going to fuse these interfacing pieces to the facing pieces, and we'll go ahead and start seaming up our shoulder seam.